books, 22, and 7 New York Times bestsellers, and we've sold 32 million books. But my passion is building the businesses around those books. The reason we were able to sell so many is we had the business around the books. And so my greatest love is helping other people find that fast track to success, able to get their business up and running and expanding to the point where you deserve. So first of all, I want to ask all the experts in the room to stand up. Everybody should be standing right now. Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. All right, you have a pass. Stand up. Okay, you are all experts. Every single one of you is an expert. Nobody's had your successes. Nobody's had your learning opportunities, right? How many of you know that what you know could help others? Exactly, all right? And what we've come together, Bill and Freddie and I, we want to take you from being the expert that you are already to becoming the authority. How many of you would like that? Yeah. So that's why we're here. That's why we want to come together. When Bill calls, I show up. When I call Bill, he shows up. That spirit of collaboration, that cooperation is what you're seeing today. This is not just a seminar. This is a movement. We're coming together to create that environment of collaboration, cooperation. We want to invite you to join our team. So thank you very much. Bill and I have been friends for many, many years. Freddie and I have been friends for about 9 months, right?
Yes. We're about due.
Yes. And I got his father's here. You know, this is a family, and we envelop those that come into the process, because your success is our success, and that's what we want to instill. And so sometimes when you're sitting in those seats, you say, well, easy for her to say, you're all those successes. But I'd like to tell you my story a little bit. Is that all right?
Yes.
But I share my story because I want you to think about how it applies to your story. All right? I grew up in Florida. My dad was retired Navy. We lived in a little tiny house between my mom's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot. I was so embarrassed by my house because my friends at school, their dads were all CEOs or officers in the military, and it's like I didn't want anybody to know my roots. My dad had a 3rd grade education. My mother had an 8th grade education. Now, he went on to run the engineering school for the Navy, so he was definitely totally self-taught. But I wanted to make sure that I had a college education. That was their dream, that their girls would have a college education. And I swore, we lived in these houses. My mom had her beauty shop. My dad used car lot. We had rental properties that I had to go scrub out bathrooms between tenants. We had orange groves, right? One of which ended up becoming SeaWorld in Orlando. But it was like, I swore I did not want to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to become a sophisticated professional, right? So I get my degree in accounting. I'm going to be a partner in a Big 8 accounting firm back then, and moved to Atlanta and had a great fun time for several years, except I was working like 80, 90 hours a week. And this life of sophisticated professional didn't feel so good. So, if I'm going to work those many hours, I should be working for myself, not someone else. And by the ripe old age of 25, remember being 25 when you know everything? All of a sudden, my parents started looking a whole lot smarter. And so for those of you who are, have kids, when they're 20, they'll start thinking you're smart again. So I decided, maybe I should do something for myself. And I got a phone call from one of my clients, and he said, Sharon, I really want you to go into this new company with me. And so I went back to my apartment, and this was back in the 70s, so it was before cell phone, PCs, everything. So the old-fashioned yellow legal pad, right? I wrote pros and cons. Didn't help me a bit. I could argue both sides. Sometimes, you just don't know. And my hand kind of wrote across the top of the page, why not? Why not do something different? Why not take that road less traveled? Why not solve a problem or serve a need? The most successful businesses solve a problem or serve a need. And this has been my philosophy ever since. And this is the entrepreneurial philosophy. Don't go with the flow. Chart your own course. How many of you want to chart your own course? Yeah. How many of you want to solve a problem or serve a need? And that's the entrepreneurial spirit. And so I made that decision. It was the worst mistake of my career, by the way. How many of you make a business mistake, Macy? Yeah. And I got up there just a few short weeks. I realized there was all kinds of corruption. I had to figure out what I was going to do next. I was really feeling pretty stupid. But the company had been involved in some litigation, and I happened to meet a young guy that was there, a lawyer he was a lawyer for control, one of his clients, Control Data, and his name was Michael Lechter. So we're celebrating 39 years of marriage in September. So Napoleon Hill said, out of every adversity comes the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Well, I got instant feedback. My worst business decision gave me the best life decision. So sometimes it takes a little longer to get that feedback and try and figure out what the positive is when we have something facing us in our life. But that one I was very pleased with and happy that I made that colossal mistake. So we got married, moved actually to Wisconsin, and I was working for the American Cancer Society. Now, Bill and I talk about the power of giving back, and you heard Freddie talking about the incredible spirit that he has in giving back, and it's such an important part of success. And I met this guy through the American Cancer Society. We're both on it, and he had a business in sheet music. And he said, he and I both shared the same passion that kids didn't like to read. And so he was the inventor of the first talking book. Remember these? They didn't exist until 1987. And so I said, I wanted to help. Now kids didn't have screens. There were no computers. They didn't have any electronics, believe it or not, back then. And so I tell my techie friends, particularly here in California, that I had the really true first disruptive technology. But bookstores were very quiet places, and they didn't want us around. And so we kind of revolutionized bookstores. But we said, how can we convince parents to rely on us? And that is that power of association, exactly what we're living today in this event. So let's go partner with Disney, Warner Brothers, Sesame Street, and yes, even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so it allowed us to get that validity and that trust from parents. And so we went from 1 million in sales, which we thought was pretty darn good. The next year, 9, the next year, 23, and the fourth year on way to 52 million in sales. We sold that, and we were able to see it grow, continue to grow. We sold it to the Golden Book Company and became $1 billion industry. And so we had kids loving to read again. And it was, again, we were writing big checks, right? Big checks to Disney and Warner Brothers. And I said, next time I build a company, I'd rather get the checks than write the checks, you think? Yeah, so it's like, maybe I need to change how we do this. And so we sold the company in 91, and we relocated to Arizona, which we've lived ever since. And in 1992, our oldest son graduated from high school, went off to college, and came home. He left in September, came home in December, said, Mom, Dad, I need a little help. I'm in credit card debt. Now, not only did he blow through a $2,500 savings account he wasn't supposed to know was there, but he charged $2,500. So he had a really good time his first semester in college. A lot of fun. But then he wanted us to bail him out, and we said no. Now, we haven't always made the right parenting choice, but that one was. Took him 7 years to get out of debt, 7 years to repair his credit, and he's now a speaker and is passionate about financial literacy as I am. But that was December of 1992, and that was when I dedicated the rest of my career to financial education, financial literacy, and entrepreneurial support. Because I believe taking control of your own financial life is how you find peace. It's how you find the ability. I believe we have a God of abundance,
Amen.
Not a God of scarcity. Okay? I don't believe the rich are evil. I believe making a lot of money just brings out more of who you really are. If you're greedy, you're going to be more greedy. If you're generous, you're going to have the ability to be even more generous.
Right.
All right? And so I went on a journey. I started working with school systems and That's why I have white hair. Trying to get financial education in the schools. And then fast forward a few years, 96, I get a phone call from my husband. I still remember where I was, because remember in 96, cell phones were this big, still attached to the car, right? And he said, Sharon, I met this guy today that has what you've been looking for. Now ladies, if your husband called you and said, I met a man today that has what you've been looking for, what would you do? I still remember going, okay honey, tell me more. And he had this guy walk into his office in flip-flops and Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt with this idea for a board game. This is what it looked like. And I share this with you because one idea can create a billion-dollar company. This is how it started. Okay. Robert Kiyosaki came to see my husband because Mike was a very talented and well-known intellectual property attorney. I shouldn't say was, that was terrible. Erase that. Is a very well-respected intellectual property attorney. And so we sat down, I met Robert at a beta test for the game. I'm the only one that got out of the rat race. The playing pieces were different caliber bullets, so yeah, really strong first impression. But at the time, he lived in Phoenix. He and his wife had 2 small apartment complexes. They made $100,000 a year from those apartments. They lived in a small condo. Their living expenses were $36,000. They were financially free. And that's the message that is so important for people to understand. Financial freedom comes from having assets that generate income that exceeds your monthly expenses. When that happens, you're financially free. It does not have to be billions of dollars. It does not have to be millions of dollars. It has to be income from your assets exceeding your monthly expenses. And I was so intrigued with this and felt this information needed to get out that I offered to help him commercialize it for free, just as a friend. And how many of you are familiar with the cash flow game? May I see? Quite a few of you. Wonderful. Thank you. And so we, in that process, he told me he wanted to sell this for $200. And I said, well, maybe you should write a brochure that kind of explains the philosophy that where people will encourage them to actually part with $200. So that's a little pricey for a board game. And so we became partners, and we wrote the brochure together. And that brochure was called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Most people don't know that, but that's kind of how it started. It was a marketing tool. And then the world said, no, we want more books. And so we ended up with 3 books, Cash Flow Quadrant, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. Thought, okay, our trilogy. Oh no, they wanted more, they wanted more. But during this process, all of a sudden, we started getting calls. So you know when you're an authority is when the calls come to you and you're not calling other people. All of a sudden, companies like these were calling us, ready to write the royalties to us. So that strategy of creating the brand, in China they call us the Purple Storm. They call me Fu Mama, which is rich mom, all right? Around the globe. We ended up in over 100 countries, over 50 languages in a 10-year partnership. And it was because of the right message at the right time. How many of you have actually read Rich Dad Poor Dad? May I see? Fantastic, wonderful, thank you. Well, the vast majority, I'm sure, if we had the time to ask each of you, you heard about it from a friend, a partner, a family member, right? Because there was no Amazon when we launched Rich Dad. Right? There was no online purchasing. It was the old-fashioned, we were on a radio interview and people had to go to the store to ask for it. They had to figure out how to find it. I literally shipped them from my living room to make sure they got the books. So much easier to be successful today in the publishing industry. But as I said, we continued over a 10-year period, lots of different products, all consistently in our brand's dress, trade dress, and people wanted to come to us. At the height of our success, I had over 5,000 people working for us, only 17 on the payroll. And that was because of the use of the power of collaboration, joint ventures, partnerships, and that's what we teach, how to collaborate and find that partner that can support you. I'd much rather work CEO to CEO than try and control 5,000 employees. How about you? And in today's environment, it's even more important because that speed to market is so important. But 10 years into this relationship, I was pretty miserable. And my partner and I just started feeling a little different about what our personal missions were. I was no longer aligned with what I wanted to do, which was continuing to support people in really taking control of their financial lives in a cost-affording way. And Robert wanted to go into franchising. It was a great model for us, not a good model for the people in the franchisees. And so I made the decision to leave at the height of our success, March 2007. And I never looked back. It was amicable for a few months, and then we ended up having some problems for a year. But we settled our differences in October of 2008. But sometimes you have to close a door in your life to allow space for new opportunities. And so a few months later, I was having a little pity party saying, really, did I make the right decision? Any of you ever have a pity party? Yeah. We have a few honest people in the room. Now, how many of you have had pity parties? Yeah, there you go. All right. And I got a phone call. And that phone call, I went over to see the caller ID, and it actually did show up on the caller ID in 2007. It was the White House. And I was invited to be on the very first President's Advisory Council for Financial Literacy. I share this with you because I would not have had that phone call had I still been a rich dad. So I challenge each and every one of you, is there a door in your life that you need to close so other doors can swing open for you? And that's what Bill and Freddie and I want to do, help you identify those opportunities that are right there. And sometimes we're so busy in the day and the busyness of our life that we don't even recognize. We're not making space for those opportunities. And that's what we're going to support you doing. And so I had the incredible opportunity to serve both President Bush and President Obama, so everybody should like me. And during that time, in 2009, we passed the Credit Card Act. And it prohibits credit card companies from soliciting college students on campus. I can't take credit for the bill, but I can take credit for being a very squeaky wheel. And if you see, I share this picture with you because I'm the only entrepreneur in the room. Another contribution to the white hair. So, but continuing to make sure that people understand that we need to take control and have those the access points, because too many young people were getting hit with huge credit card debt. My son, the day he arrived, there was a table, free pizza, free money, free t-shirt, free money. A few days later, he hadn't done his laundry. He saw free towel, free money, right? All of those things got people into tremendous debt that now at least they have to think about it. So fast forward, we're on the President's Advisory Council when this happened, when the economy went completely south. Many of you may have felt the impact of that. And so it was an honor and an awesome responsibility to be part of trying to create the solution for that. But then in March of 2008, I got another phone call. Now again, every phone call can change your life. This is a common theme for me. I want you to all think about that. Those phone calls can give you opportunities. And that phone call was the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And they wanted to find out. I knew Don Green, the CEO of the foundation. And with the economy going south, they wanted to help reinvigorate the teachings of Napoleon Hill, because young people, and my definition of young is getting older, so young people under the age of 50, many of them didn't even know who he was. How many of you have read Think and Grow Rich? May I see? Fantastic. How many of you have not? Okay, you were the first one to raise your hand, so I'm going to make sure you have the opportunity. There's also a common theme in when I talk, and that is taking action is important. Yes? So thank you, enjoy.
Thank you.
But you may not know who he was, but you know his work. He's the one that came up with pay yourself first. He's the one that has the concept of whatever your mind can conceive and believe you can achieve. He also actually was the first one to create the concept of mastermind, which is what we're inviting you to join us with. Freddie and Bill and Sharon together with our unique talents combined to create exponential results for those of you that choose to go on this journey with us. But he also wrote about the law of attraction. Most of you probably know about the movie and the book The Secret, Rhonda Byrne. Well, he actually wrote about it in 1919, but with a little different twist. You know, Rhonda says, stand here and think good thoughts and you're going to be showered with money. Good luck with that. He talks about, yes, positive mindset is hugely important, combined with positive action. That word again, say action. Action. We're offering you to take action today in your life. Take action in propelling yourself forward with us so we can support you in doing that. But that began another 10-year relationship. My first book with the foundation was 3 Feet from Gold. And then I had the incredible opportunity to receive a manuscript that Napoleon Hill himself had written in 1938 called Outwitting the Devil. Any of you read that? Yeah, a few of you, wonderful. Oh, front row, I love it. The front row. A round of applause for the front row. I love it. I wish I had my camera to take that picture. What happened was the Think and Grow Rich was a 25-year initiative by Napoleon Hill. Andrew Carnegie introduced him to the richest men, no women in business back then in the world, because he said there's a commonality. And that's why Think and Grow Rich is so powerful. It's as powerful today as when he released it in 37, because it was like the doctoral thesis of success. And that's why if you've not read it, I read it every year. Originally read it when I was 19. Didn't realize the impact it had on me until I was in my 30s, but I still read it every year, sometimes a couple times a year. But Napoleon Hill, when he released it in 1937, was frustrated. He said, even though people know what they're supposed to do to become successful, they don't do it. Anybody feel busted? Yes. Any of you realize you had an opportunity to take action and you didn't? And a week later you had lack of action remorse. Okay? There's a big difference between buyer's remorse and lack of action remorse, right? Because you are in control of your own life. You are the CEO of your own life. If not you, who? Nobody's going to do it for you. You've got to grab the bull by the horn and take action. And then, so this Outwitting the Devil was a manuscript that he wrote when he was frustrated in 1938. But the title scared his wife. She worked for the Presbyterian College. She forbid it to be published. It got locked away in a vault for 73 years. It passed through the family and finally came into the hands of the foundation. So I got another phone call from the foundation saying, Sharon, I have this manuscript. I don't know what to do with it. Literally typed on a typewriter, right, back in 38. Handwritten notes of Napoleon Hill in the margins. I ran over here. I do all my writing in San Diego with the ocean. And within a couple of hours, it really transformed my mindset. And we're talking 2011. It is an incredible work, and it talks about how we sometimes and most likely are our own worst enemy, right? We allow fear to keep us back. Fear can either paralyze you or motivate you. And too many of us are paralyzed by fear, right? And we have that lack of action remorse because we realize we're not doing something that we could to help propel ourselves forward. And then when I released that, I was able to have the opportunity to Think and Grow Rich for Women, which was an incredible initiative. I love doing it. It was something I highlight over 300 women in the book, honoring Napoleon Hill's work. And so women are the future. Round of applause. But we love the men in our lives, don't we? Yeah. Now how about a round of applause for the men who helped get us here, right?
Oh, yeah.
One of the reasons I wrote this book, because I want you men to hear me say this, is I was really tired of all the complaining and criticizing women did about the men in their lives. And I said, stop it. Let's change the dialogue. Let's celebrate the accomplishments that women have made, and let's celebrate the men who have supported us along the way. So, and then I have a new book that's going to be out in September, Success and Something Greater. We're going to have a launch party in Las Vegas on September 14th, which is Bill Walsh's birthday. And it's my husband's and my 39th anniversary. So we have a lot to celebrate, right? Success and Something Greater is the name of the book. And then what is hugely important to me is that was the title that Napoleon Hill was going to use on his last book. And he passed before he finished it. And the foundation reached out to me and said, we'd like you to use that title. So it's really hugely touching to me, and I'm excited about it. But in 3 Feet from Gold, we came up with the success equation. I'm going to ask you to think about this in your life and how you apply it in your life. Because it truly is, it helps you identify things that you need to do. And it's really taking your passion and your talent. Now, passion, most people say, love what you do what you love, right?
Right.
No. My passion came from anger. I was angry we weren't teaching kids about money, and that passion is as strong today as it was in '92.
Yes.
All right? What is your passion? And some